When I open the front door to go walk Leo, my wife is on her knees, with her head rubbing against the ground. I step over her, ignoring my wife. I went outside and Leo was scampering around, unable to get out because my wife was in the way. Leo kicked my wife's backside and walked out, gaining momentum. I hear my wife say, "Ugh," but she stays still, not lifting her head. And when I came back after about 40 minutes, my wife was still on her knees in the same position. I was about to go in the door without a care when Leo went around my wife in a circle. Right next to her, he ejected a large amount of brown substance. Then, he shuffled and sanded with his hind legs. All of that sand splashed onto my wife. "Stop it, you stupid dog!" my wife shouted loudly, and Leo growled and barked loudly in defeat. Leo growled and barked. "Thank you, Leo. You're really smart." My name is Masato. My wife, Nozomi, and I are newlyweds. She is 6 years younger than me, and I am over 40 years old. And in my first marriage. I am married for the first time over 40 years old because I have been working hard at my father's company and leading a work-centered life. I had never been married before because my wife had been centered around work, working hard at my father's company. I met my wife when she changed jobs at her father's company. His company has about 50 employees, and I have been with the company for 20 years. A few years ago, I became the vice president of the company. I've been working with my father and the other employees to keep the company afloat. My wife was hired as a sales representative. She was a newcomer who was expected to bring in various objects. However, she was only an employee. I never imagined that she would later become my wife. She's a friendly person anyway. Even though I was the vice president, she would talk to me without hesitation. "Do you mind if I sit next to the vice president?" I was at a drinking party, once every few months. "Please, come in." "I've always wanted to talk to the vice president." "I see. You want to talk about business?" "What?" "I would like to know your private things." "My private life? Well. What does the vice president do on his day off?" "On my days off, I read a lot, then I play with my dog. Sometimes I go to the library." "What? You like to read?" "It's not so much that I like to read. I have to check the economic newspapers all the time. I also check local newspapers." "Is that for the company?" "Yes, that's right. A regional company like ours must always bear the burden of the situation. Because of my profession, I have a lot of opportunities to interact with various people. I have to constantly put knowledge into my head." "I respect you, Mr. Vice President." "I'm just doing what I have to do to run the company." "I see, but what are you doing in the library?" "There are books in the library that are forbidden. I go there to read them, mainly literature and stuff like that." "What do you mean by prohibited?" "It means you can't check them out." "Wow, I'm interested. I'll go there next time." Even though I felt a little smoky towards her, I thought to myself, I'm not going to go into people's pockets. I was a little bit annoyed at her, but I thought to myself, I'm not sure if this is how you get into people's pockets, even in sales. Then I went to the library for the first time in a while. While I was reading through some literature, a voice called out to me from behind. "Vice President!" "Oh, you're really here?" "Yes, I was curious. But, Mr. Vice President, you really only come here once in a while, don't you?" "What?" "I've been coming here every time the Vice President has a day off since then, but you're never here." "I told you it was only once in a while." "But I'm glad I got to see you today. How long will you be here?" "Well, I haven't decided yet, but..." "Okay, see you later." "Later? You mean she is going to talk to me again?" I was puzzled because I had never met an employee on my day off before. Still, I was looking into all the things I had planned to look into today. It was closing time before I knew it. "Good work!" I was just leaving the library when she spoke to me. "Oh, you're still here?" "Yes, I've been waiting for you, Mr. Vice President." "You didn't have to wait for me. I thought your day off had been wasted." "Not at all, not at all. I'm going to have dinner with the Vice President now, and my time is not wasted at all." "You totally got it. What do you want to eat?" "I want to eat yakiniku. I want to eat yakiniku." "You're young. I'm young. Let's go." "Can I recommend a place?" "Yes, that's fine." Her recommendation was a relatively inexpensive family-oriented yakiniku restaurant. "I'm sorry, it's my treat today. I can only show you such a place." "What are you talking about? It's a nice place. But I can't have an employee treating me to a meal. I'll pay for it, so eat whatever you want." "Am I an employee after all?" "What?" "I've been in love with Masato-san ever since I joined the company." "What? What? Wait a minute. No, you can't do that. I can't do that." "Why? Because I'm younger?" "No, that's not why." "I'm a vice president and you're an employee. That's not allowed." I was so upset by the suddenness of the situation that I don't even remember the taste of the barbecue. In the end, I just kept saying no at that time. After that, she continued to try very hard to express her feelings to me. I was flattered by that, and here we are today. My mother passed away 3 years ago. I couldn't report the relationship or the marriage to my mother. When I told my father, he was delighted with the news. He was happy to hear about his son's love life, who had never had a woman's heart. He was enjoying his evening drinks, saying, "Now, my future is secure." And now, the father, his wife, and their dog, Leo, and their 3 children, plus 1, they live together with their dog, Leo. However, after the marriage, my wife's sales performance began to decline. She had never failed to meet her quota before, but since the 3rd month of marriage, she has been failing to meet her quota. When I asked my wife about this, I am told to not talk about the company at home. I think that's true, and if I try to catch her at work, I can't catch her because she is making her rounds outside the office. She still seems to be doing a lot of outside work, but it wasn't accompanied by results. The sales manager reported no particular change in her behavior. Even when I checked his daily report, he said she was making the proper rounds of the sales offices. However, my wife was concerned that her sales performance was declining. She began to work overtime and came home late more often. "Hey, you've been working overtime a lot lately, haven't you?" I caught my wife after she came home and talked to her. She said, "Yeah, I guess so." "I'm glad you're working so hard, but at this rate, you'll be working over 80 hours of overtime a month, right?" "Is that right?" "If that happens, I'll have to submit a 36 agreement form. Our company has never submitted it until now. It's our job to create a good work environment for our employees." "I didn't know that." "So, no more overtime, okay?" "But I haven't met my quota." "Quotas don't have to be that strict. You have been having a string of months where you haven't met your quota. Then why don't you review your quota?" "That's impossible." "Why?" "I'm your wife." "So?" "You can't embarrass me like that." "It doesn't matter. You work too many hours. You'll ruin the mood of the company. I need you to get the job done on time. If you work overtime in a month, it will be no more than 20 hours. That's what the people around you won't understand. Oh, you are married to the vice president, so you don't have to abide by the rules." "I understand." The next day, my wife started leaving work on time, but she still came home late. I think my wife is working behind my back at the company. No matter how much she stopped working overtime, this would destroy my body. I was very worried, and then bad things happened. I received the news that my father had collapsed on the way to work and had been taken to the hospital. I left the company in the hands of my employees and rushed to the hospital, but I could not see him die. I was in the depths of grief. I called my wife, but she did not visit the hospital until the last minute. She said she was just at a client's office. I am sure her father would have wanted her to put work first, but what my wife said to me when she came home was unbelievable. "From now on, Masato and I will support the company." "Thank you." "I'm going to make this quick, but I'm going to be the president and Masato is going to be the vice president, right?" "What?" What was she going to say right after my father's death? I couldn't get my head around it. "Don't." What? What?" "My father just passed away, and the funeral hasn't even taken place yet. You can't talk about that right now." "It's important. What if the boss suddenly disappears and the company goes bankrupt?" "It won't suddenly turn around like that. What do you think I learned management from my father for?" "My father was old enough to know that." "Well, then, it's not that complicated. From now on, I'm the boss and you support me." "We can talk about that later." I interrupted my wife and made arrangements for the wake and funeral. The wake was over and the funeral was scheduled for the next day. My wife was in an overtly bad mood. I didn't want to deal with it, so I patted Leo and shared my grief. I'm sure Leo would never know that his father had died. Still, I wonder if he sensed something was wrong. He stares at me with a tear-stained face, tilting his head. Normally, he would bring me a ball to play with, but today, he is sitting still next to me. It is at this sight that my tears well up again. "Hey, what was that thing at the wake?" "What?" "Why is everyone always talking to Masato? I'm the next president." "You're talking about that again? I told you to stop." "Because you don't like it." "It's my father's wake. It's no wonder people are talking to me." "It's so boring. Leo, let's go for a walk." Leo did not respond to his wife's question. "He's such a lovable dog. He totally ignores me. Hey, now that the boss is gone, don't you want Leo anymore?" "What are you talking about? What are you talking about? Leo is family." "No, he's just a cute little dog." "That's an order from the president-elect. Just kidding." I was so fed up with my wife that I took Leo and went into my room. The next morning, I woke up to find that my wife was gone. I waited for a while to see if she had gone to the convenience store, but she did not come back. Soothed, I called my wife, but she was disconnected. Frustrated, I headed for the funeral home. 3 minutes before the funeral was to begin, my phone rang. I picked up the phone silently. Hello, Masato? Where are you? Well, a little... My father's funeral is about to start. Yeah, I know. I'm wasting my time, and I'm going to miss it. I took a deep breath. Well, you're going to regret it. No, I won't. Everyone is so focused on you that there's no point in going if they're going to neglect me. See you later. My wife hung up the phone. It's impossible. I was getting angry. Well, okay. Now that I had made my wife's feelings clear, all I had to do was to do what I had to do. All I had to do was to do what I had to do. The next day, I opened the front door to take Leo for a walk. My wife was on her knees, rubbing her head on the ground. I stepped over her, ignoring my wife, and stepped outside. Leo was hanging around, unable to get out because her husband was in the way. Leo gained momentum and kicked her husband in the back and went outside. I heard my wife say, "Ugh," but she stayed still, not lifting her head. Perhaps a certain person had contacted her. I took Leo out for a walk, without a care in the world. When I returned about 40 minutes later, my wife was still on her knees in the same position. I was about to go in the front door when Leo circled around her husband. Right next to her, he ejected a large amount of brown substance. Then, he shuffled and sanded with his hind legs. All that sand splattered all over my wife. "Stop it, you stupid dog!" my wife shouted loudly, and Leo nodded and barked loudly in defeat. "Leo, that's enough. Thank you. You're really smart. You didn't miss her from the beginning. You knew she was my enemy, didn't you? You don't usually show it here, do you?" I love Leo with all my heart. "Masato, I'm sorry. Think again." Oh, I knew they'd be in touch. After the funeral, I returned to the office with the employees. After the funeral, I returned to the company with the employees, and I laid out a plan for the future, to allay their fears. I told them that I would become president and that the vice president would be the general manager, who had been in charge of human resources up to this point. I told them that the company would be able to continue without any problems. This was the way his father had wanted it before his death. I had already talked to the personnel manager about it for some time. However, his wife had always thought that she would be able to become the president of the company. I guess she just flew back home when she got the call. I never said anything about making you president, nor do I have any intention of doing so. I'm your wife, aren't I? Oh, that's right. Even if you are my wife, I can't entrust the company to you. Then my wife sighed loudly and stood up. Then she sighed loudly and stood up. Then she started swearing, which was a complete change from her earlier attitude. Oh, I see. Then give me back my labor. I approached you to become president, but what's the point? My wife, thinking I'd be shocked, she grinned and said, Then I'm divorced. Oh, but make sure you give me half of the boss's inheritance. We were still a couple. I agree. Let's get a divorce. I went into Leo's house, took the divorce papers out of the drawer, and handed them to my wife at the door. You're very prepared. Yes, I am. I've been thinking about it. What? Did you know about my plan? Go ahead. When she finished the divorce papers, I checked to make sure there were no omissions. Then, we'll discuss the details again later. We can do it in the conference room at the office. If you're not embarrassed, go ahead. Since you and I are going to be strangers, please address me properly as Mr. President from now on. Yes, you're the president. I'm looking forward to my inheritance. My wife left with a grin on her face. Then, I filed the divorce papers and my divorce from my wife was final. The next day, I was waiting in the conference room when my ex-wife came in, but as soon as she entered the conference room, her face turned blue. Tadashi, why? Did you think I didn't know anything? You guys seem to be getting along pretty well. My ex-wife's lover is sitting next to me, looking down. I found out about my ex-wife's affair when I finished communicating the future structure of the company to the employees. Several sales employees stopped me and informed me of this fact. They even politely brought me proof. My ex-wife approached me because she wanted to be president. After we got married, her sales performance dropped. She thought her future was secure because she was already married to me, and during the time I was applying for overtime, I was enjoying an affair with him. My ex-wife was having an affair while receiving money from the company. This is already a case for dismissal. You are too careless, aren't you? You're too careless, having your picture taken like this. There are other employees who work outside the company besides you. You never know when or where you will be seen, and it's unbecoming of you to touch a new sales associate. I'm demanding compensation from both parties. Also, You have committed fraud by claiming unnecessary salaries from the company. Therefore, you are hereby dismissed from the company effective today." "Wait a minute! The compensation will be paid out of the president's estate!" How ignorant you are. You're really disgusting. "You have no right to inherit the estate. Only I, his biological son, have the right to inherit my father's estate." "What?" "That's all for now. Thank you both for your hard work. Please pack your belongings by the end of the day."
I'll just...
I left the conference room without them, and 2 weeks later, the two of them transferred their alimony to my account. 1 month has passed since then. Things have settled down in the company. My ex-wife stormed into our house several times, but each time, she was barked at so loudly that I had to leave the house. I don't know what happened to them, but I don't think they can work in the same industry around here anymore. Leo is my only family now. I fell for a terrible woman. If I meet the right person, I would like to start with love again. But then, I think I'll try to match Leo first. Maybe there is something to be said for someone Leo doesn't miss. I'm only going to keep moving forward. I will keep the company and enjoy my life.